Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another edition of Infection Podcast. My name is Nick Craig. You can follow me on X at Nicholas M. Craig. You can check out our website, infectionpodcast.com. Back on another Monday edition. The sweatshirt era going on with old Brian Aldridge and Boise, Idaho. What's going on, Brian? Hope all's well.
Yeah, everything's going pretty good here. It's getting a little bit cooler here, so I figured I'd try this. It's getting pretty warm in this room, though, so maybe I'm going to probably regret it about 3/4 of the way through the show.
A little striptease activity going on about 45 minutes into the program. Well, I'm just, Brian, you got to give the people what they promises. Want. You got to give them what they want, Brian.
But yeah, doing good. So if you want to find me at Boise Computer on X, or you can get me at Brian Aldridge on all the other platforms. So we had something pop up within the last within the last week. And I was kind of surprised because I thought that this was something that was going to be done.
Were you really surprised?
Well, I thought they'd given up. I thought that the FTC had said that is enough, but the FTC is reviving their challenge. Of course, at the last minute, they let it get right to the goalpost, and then they want to delay it and cause issues. And it's like, well, if you had an issue with it, why'd you pretty much take away all of your challenges and then wait, months now?
Well,
before you brought it up again?
From what I remember, not only did they didn't really take away their challenges, they lost in court, and that was kind of the end of the road. Was, okay, you lost in court. Yes, you could go back and file additional motions and things of that nature, but you lost. And that was, at this point, I'd say probably about a month, maybe 55 days ago or something like that. Within the last 2 months, this is, of course, the United States Federal Trade Commission under the leadership of Lina Khan, who has been an unmitigated disaster for the FTC.
Very anti-business.
They announced this week they're suing Amazon. They're calling Amazon an online shopping monopoly. Now, they're not trying to break up Amazon, but they claim they have an unfair advantage in online shopping, which I bought something e-commerce from Target this week and from Walmart. They both have very competitive online shopping options. eBay has existed forever. So this, and let me put my little political twist on this, Brian. This is another Biden appointee, like Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, just another failure with this administration. As you noted, Lina Khan is seemingly so anti-business, which would make sense when you look at her political background. She's made a complete ass of the FTC. It's almost a laugh. You watch CNBC, the FTC is a laughing stock. I mean, they don't even take anything the FTC says seriously. And rightfully so.
Because, they've turned into activists is what it generally has turned into. And the decisions that they've made, the arguments that they've made have all pointed to and made very clear that that's what's happening. And so that's why with this, just the way that they're doing it is they're just trying to cause issues, right? They're just trying to cause contention. They're not really making legitimate arguments that I have seen or anything that, as you've said, can stand up in court. So we'll see where this actually goes. They do make a note in this article that it's unlikely to derail the deal from closing, but they're gonna continue to say that they don't agree and they think it should shut down. So we'll see where that goes. Of course, the UK's version of this is still moving forward. I haven't heard a final anything on that yet. I was kind of hoping that would be settled.
Their decision is expected out the 18th or something like that, or the 16th. It's within the next 2 weeks before they have to give their final announcement. It's
and Microsoft's claiming that the deal is going to close by the 18th.
Okay, so then so then I think the UK decision is due final next week. I believe is what I believe is what we're dealing with. So the indication here is that the hearing is not going to derail anything that is set to go forward, and that brings forward the larger question of, okay, so The FTC has got all these objections. Fine, right? That they're fine to have those objections. They played out in court. They lost. So now we're just seemingly lighting money on fire at the expense of the taxpayer to fight something internally that is not going to have any impact on the final closing of the deal. There is
on the actual outcome.
On the actual outcome. So whether it's a bad deal or not is irrelevant, because this hearing that they're going to be doing internally will have no impact on what is actually happening. So it's nothing more than posturing, gaslighting, and just wasting money. At least that's how I read it.
And here's Microsoft's response. So Microsoft responded to the announcement. They don't even really acknowledge them, but they say, we still anticipate that we will close the transaction by October 18th, and we have full confidence in our case and the deal's benefits to gamers and competition. So it's almost like an ignoring of the FTC and anything they're saying overall. I mean, they didn't say anything specific about the FTC. It's just the FTC is saying that they're going to have hearings, but we plan on everything going as normal.
Yes.
Shows you how much sway the FTC has now.
Correct. And when you bring seemingly frivolous, why can't I pronounce that word? Frivolous. There we go. When you bring frivolous legal action, you lose them all. I mean, the FTC is like 0 for 4 on these legal challenges. And then this one we know will not have an impact on the outcome one way or the other. Yeah, that's kind of what's happening. Which, by the way, I will note, Brian, is a bad thing. Because what is going to happen is a legitimate issue is going to come forward. Because of the FTC's incompetence, they're going to screw it up, and it's actually going to hurt the consumer. The point of the Federal Trade Commission is to protect consumers. Nothing that we've seen thus far, including their ridiculous lawsuit against Amazon this week, is going to be, or last week, whenever it was, is protecting or helping consumers in any way, shape, or form. And it's only a matter of time before some shyster comes forward and takes the FTC for a ride and really ends up hurting people. That's the unfortunate consequence of this whole thing.
Well, one interesting thing here in their court filings, the FTC's court filings, listen to the timing of this. The commission has determined that the public interest warrants that this matter be resolved fully and expeditiously, the FTC filing said. The evidentiary hearing in this proceeding shall commence 21 days after the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit issues its opinion regarding the appeal of the district court decision on the requested preliminary injunction. So they're wanting something that's happening after they even plan closing this deal.
That's what I'm saying. It has no.
So they can't even do it until 21 days after that decision's even put out. They're not going to be doing anything, and they plan on having this all wrapped up. So it's just it's pretty crazy.
Well, it's just stupid. It's stupid. It's bad for business, and it does not help protect consumers in any significant way. So we'll keep an eye on this throughout the week, and I guess maybe we need to do a special edition on the. This is always risky. Maybe we need to do a special edition on the 18th, but who knows? If it will close at like 11:59 p.m. or maybe it closes in the morning. maybe we'll have to figure that out. But that's the latest on that. Seems like full steam ahead. Train is still running for Microsoft in terms of their nearly $70 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard. So that's the latest we got over there.
Well, here's one that hits more home for you. You said this is pretty big news in North Carolina, but Fortnite maker, everybody thinks of Epic Games as Fortnite, but really Unreal Engine for me. A lot of in the industry, the Unreal Engine is really what Epic is about, not
Unreal Tournament
Fortnite itself.
3.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what everybody knows. But they're cutting staff, so they had a set of layoffs, which was almost 900 people from what I've read. I kept saying more than 900, or more than 800, about 900, but they are laying off people because you got to think of what the industry is doing now. This is something that we've covered on a regular basis of what's happening in the video game industry, what's happening in the tech industry. Tons of layoffs. You'll have random articles where people are saying, "Oh, things are looking good, things are looking up." So, numbers are up. Of course, when you're when you have something that's plummeted for months and months and months to years, and then all of a sudden it has a little rebound, you can't say that everything's perfect. It's nowhere near where it was when things were good. But hey, this is kind of the first falter I think we've seen from Epic Games when it comes to their company, and it shows that they're trimming up. They must think that we're not towards the end of the downturn. I think they probably are guesstimating that we're at the beginning of some of the pain that we're going to be feeling. And so they've laid off. It says about 830 people, roughly 16% of the company. It's not only affected just Epic. It's some of the companies linked to Epic. For instance, the Bandcamp. They sold off Bandcamp amid these layoffs because
they did, or they're going to. I think they're going to.
It says sells. Yeah, it says Bandcamp's new owner, the music marketing company Songtradr, says it will continue to operate Bandcamp as a marketplace and music community with an artist first revenue share.
Gotcha.
So it sounds like they've already sold it off, and announced that company is going to be acquiring Bandcamp.
Yeah, I want to read this quote from Tim Sweeney, which I think perfectly summarizes it all. For a while now, we've been spending way more money than we earn. I'd long been optimistic that we could power through this transaction without layoffs, but in retrospect, I see that this was unrealistic. Now, this is a company that is pulling in billions of dollars a year in revenue from one source, and that's Fortnite. But as we have discussed, we talked a little bit about this on the Sunday show, Brian. And it came, it was this is a big deal. I mean, you're talking especially in North Carolina. Epic is a very, not a massive employer, but they're a large employer, and they're all centrally located in one area. When you lay off 900 people, now they all don't work in that campus. They have a lot of remote workers, but when you lay off 900 people, it can significantly impact an area. We have this has been writing on the wall, not necessarily just for Epic, but for this industry as a whole. Fortnite is a free-to-play game that makes its money on season passes and microtransactions. That is the free-to-play model. And when times get tough as a family, and you've got a couple of kids, and the budget is becoming ever more constricted, you might not have that extra $15 or $20 a month that your child was spending on skins and packs and all this other stuff. That money, that is one of the first things to go, I would presume. I'm not in a situation where I have kids and I'm cutting things, but if my choice was groceries or putting $20 in my gas tank or my kid buying some stupid emote on Fortnite, I think it's going to be pretty clear that the emotes will have to temporarily go so that I can drive to work or soccer practice or whatever the hell's going on.
Well,
we've seen this all over the place.
Here's one thing that they said about where their money is coming from now, because they said there's kind of a transition. They said, while Fortnite is starting to grow again, the growth is driven primarily by creator content with significant revenue sharing. This is a lower margin business than we had when Fortnite Battle Royale took off and began funding our expansion, Sweeney said. Success with the creator ecosystem is a great achievement, but it means a major structural change to our economics. So that's what it comes down to, is they're kind of going for the creators and doing things to where it's a little bit kind of like the Roblox. I guess, if I think of it more of like the Roblox mentality of where other people are creating your content, you're making money off of it. I think part of that is there's less need for internal employees to be constantly creating content. So there's a less investment that you have to make in that way. You just need to make the tools really good to continue making money. I think this has a good trajectory of making money. As they build this up bigger and bigger and bigger, they make an income stream just off of existing, while other people do all the work and get people to continue playing the game.
Well, we have talked a lot about Epic in the past. They have had one of the Tim Sweeney, whether you like him or not, he seems to be at least a relatively consistent guy on his viewpoints and where he stands on things. They have been one of the most generous in terms of rev splits all across Epic. This is not just a Fortnite thing. From the Epic Game Store to Unreal, they have a very, very generous rev split with content with creators, whatever might be going on, game developers. 40% of the sale on creator content goes to the creator. Now you might think, well, man, that's still 60% for Epic, and yes, that's true, but you're looking at going from 100% margin to 60% margin. That is, Brian, I don't like doing math on the air because it can get very confusing. That is a 40% increase or in this case, decrease in revenue generation for them. Now, as you know, it's a lot of it is creator content, so they're not creating the content, but they're hosting the servers. They're they're doing everything associated with it besides physically making the content, and 40% of that money is flying right out the window. I mean, that is what they are dealing with as a company. It's the old Spotify model, which makes Spotify such a kind of an interesting business to operate in. Anytime you play a song on Spotify, there are pennies, maybe fractions of pennies, that are going, it is fractions of pennies, that are going to those to the content creators, the music licensing companies, and the artists that are providing that music. So you have to have, that is not a sustainable business model forever. You need very high margin items. And 60 is not bad, but again, compared to 100, it's a significant decrease. And people want to play on these creator maps. It's the Roblox model. It's the Gary's Mod model. That's what people want to play. And Epic is cutting massive checks to these people every single month. And that is a huge source of outgoing expenditures for them. No question about it.
Well, and one thing that they're doing as well, kind of in the midst of all this, is they're raising the price of V-Bucks in their major markets.
I'm sure.
So October 27th, the price increase will affect the United States, Japan, and some of the European countries. So this is going to go from 12 to 15% increase for the bundles. So 1,000 V-Bucks, for example, will go from $8 to $9. Not crazy, but I think this is a way that they're trying to kind of balance what it costs, for instance, to do business, to host the servers, to do all of these things that you'd mentioned that allow this whole infrastructure to work and allow all that creator content to be up and running. But they've got to make it to where they still make money, and selling all these unique skins and everything doesn't seem to be the way that they're trying to do it anymore. And I think that having it to where people are creating that content, creating maps, creating all these things, once that's fully in place, maybe they'll start to bring some of these, the growth model back in. But as we've talked about across the industry, this is being a negative effect. There's been so many studios that way before Epic have had to lay off people. Epic's lasted quite a long time compared to most. I mean, we've had full studios closing down.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about Unity and what they're doing, what they tried to do initially to try to become more profitable, because all these people that make game engines make money when games make money. They make money when games release. They make money when games sell. Depending on their licensing, as we found out with Unity, sometimes they make money when you do microtransactions. But here, when every single industry every single company across this industry has having to make cuts and is not making as much money, that rolls on to Epic. That rolls on to Unity and all these companies that make money off of a successful gaming industry. So this is something that I think we're going to continue to see. One thing is the Epic Games, their strategy person that was their publishing strategy left. What their quote was, "I am not a good fit for this new version of Epic." What that means? Perhaps he was just laid off. But I thought that was kind of an interesting thing to say, and maybe he doesn't agree with the kind of mentality of having people make content and be less of a company-driven direction, right? Did you hear any more than that? I don't know if he was purposely part of the layoffs or something that he took the decision into his own hands and left, but I'd be kind of surprised if he just left on his own.
Yeah, probably not. And he's been with the company since 2016, which would have been around the real peak, or before the real peak of Fortnite really exploded. So this is a guy that has seen the company go with their with their huge boom that they saw. Not saying Epic was an incredibly successful company before that. Let me be clear. But he mentioned in his note on X, we launched Fortnite, which later became one of those self-reinforcing cultural phenomenons I wrote about just a year prior. We proved that free-to-play without pay-to-win can work at scale. We challenged the status quo in game distribution with an 88-12 revenue share. That's an 88. That was an 88 for the other people, 12 for Epic. Now Epic Games is on its way to transforming from a game developer, engine creator, and publisher into a platform. And that's the change. Epic 5.0. Yeah. I'm not a good fit for this new version of Epic. It requires people of a different kind. So this this seems like it very well could have been this could have been just a huge difference in opinions as to how the company should go. This is not super uncommon at large companies. Company shifts in one direction, and as he notes, not everybody's built the same way. I'm built in the way that this is I operate. This doesn't fit my thing. I'm sure he was handsomely paid in his time at Epic. I would imagine as that role. But going back to the V-Bucks increase, Brian, you might think $8 to $9. That's not a huge. It's a couple of quarters increase in cost, but percentage wise. It's like 13%, which doesn't sound like, again, when you look at $8 to $9, you don't think that, but a 13% increase across the gazillions of V-Bucks that they're selling. This is exactly what we talked about with Unity the last couple of weeks. These are companies that have, and oftentimes maybe were too generous with their offerings, gave away too much of the farm. And unfortunately, Brian, that's what you have to do to be competitive early on. You have to have the most lucrative thing. The reason that there's any games on the Epic Game Store right now is because not only was Epic offering crazy rev splits in compared to what Steam was, they were paying developers to bring their games to Epic. That's part of the gig when you're trying to build out a new platform, but that doesn't last forever. There becomes a point of diminishing returns, and I would guess internally, Tim Sweeney, who says he tried to weather the storm, those numbers just started piling up and they did not make sense. And that's when you have to make these tough decisions, like laying off 16% of your workforce. That is not an insignificant amount of people. Now, we don't know where they were laid off from, and that's always interesting to know is, where are these layoffs coming from? Are these QC people? Are they support? Are they developer? I mean, where are these people? And again, you're talking about a company that has got multiple big facets. Epic is not just Fortnite. It is not just Unreal Engine. There's so many other things, developer support, things like that are in that company. Where are these layoffs actually from? I know they have a bunch of QA testers. They have massive marketing and sales teams. I had a good friend that worked there. I don't think she does anymore. Not because of this, unrelated. So these are companies making the tough decisions now. They're up to a point where I think they've given away enough. You have to start reining that back in a little bit, and that's where they are. That's where they find themselves right now. It's either that or continue spending more than you're making and risk losing it all. I mean, those are your two options, and neither are great, obviously.
No. And one other thing I saw that was interesting is they're reviving that appeal against Apple to the Supreme Court. So they filed another Supreme Court appeal against Apple. And so we'll see, that's something they're continuing to try to get to where they don't have to pay those high fees, especially if their focus is going to be on V-Bucks and trying to make money off of that. Perhaps that's why they're also raising the fees so that they'll go back into the Apple sphere at some point and have their money already have half of the Apple tax in there. Or, there's a tax across many of the platforms in the same way. But that we'll keep an eye on that and see if that continues to go anywhere or if it kind of falls flat. But That happened just in the last couple of days. They've announced that.
Well, yeah, this is kind of this is a little bit of a gamble. If you're successful in this, you can now bring Fortnite has not been on iOS this entire time. You could bring a stupidly large player base back into the game and generate oodles of money in that. Now, also from a different standpoint, Tim Sweeney's kind of on a crusade with this. He's made it very clear where he stands. He's put his money where his mouth is. He's fought the most valued company in the world ever in Apple. And when he says he's fighting for developers, based on the business practices of Epic, they're not a perfect company by any stretch. Nobody is. I have to believe him, Brian. I mean, I've seen nothing from them as a company. Again, very generous rev splits, the tools that they offer people for free. I genuinely believe him when he says those things. I have no reason not to. So I'm not necessarily
If they win this,
surprised.
it benefits a lot of other companies. I mean, they're kind of taking the cost to fight this, but if they win, just imagine how this will affect thousands and thousands of companies that currently are paying a huge fee to Apple to be able to be on their platform.
Well, think of how many Unreal games it would help that are either on the iOS store right now that could get larger, have larger kickbacks to Epic potentially, or new games in the future. People that will look to bring those things to the iOS store, notwithstanding the Apple tax as it's known. So, which is what 30%, I believe, of every transaction you do on iOS goes directly to Apple. That's just a flat rate. You have no wiggle room, no pay, or no room to negotiate that at all. It's just flat 30%. So I'm not surprised to hear the Epic news. I think we've kind of been on this trail for quite some time. We've tracked this with other companies. But I do want to go back to the original article, the original, if I can find it, here it is. The original article, when you talk about other revenue streams within Epic as itself as a company, they obviously have Fortnite. That's, I would presume, their largest. But what is revenue with Unreal looking like right now? How many new indie games are we seeing coming out that are really lighting up the marketplaces? I think
that's got to be down as well. Yeah,
I'm sure it is.
Numbers.
Sure. I mean, it's all of this stuff culminates. And again, there's only so much money that you can, when you're pulling in the amount of money that they were, which was billions of dollars a year, there's really only so many places you can spend it. And one of the ways you spend it is just by hiring everybody. That's a really, I say easy way, but an easy way for a business to spend money. Have more people on payroll, healthcare, all of the things associated with it. You can only spend it on so many other things besides just piling up money and burning it in the courtyard. I mean, there's only so many things that you can physically do. And I'm sure that they were well inflated in their staff. They did not need all the people they had hired. They just had the money, and there's only so much you can do with it. You can't put billions of dollars in the bank. That is not a smart use with money at all. You would invest it or do things with it, and one of the investments is staff and trying to do new things. But you hit a period of time where you say, okay, we need to scale back. We need to focus on our products that are making us money, maybe some of these ancillary projects and things that we are working on just as kind of fun more than anything else because we had the resources to do that. Those go away. The same way that at large companies, Brian, when the economy gets tough, maybe the free lunch and the free coffee and the cafeteria and all these snacks and drinks all day that used to be provided.
Dry up a little bit.
That stuff dries up a little bit. Yeah. And I know Epic was one of those companies that had free lunch that they offered their employees every single day, had very lucrative PTO policies for their people, had incredible benefits. It's a culture thing, and you work at companies like that for that reason. So I'm sure it's a tough decision. From what I know about Tim Sweeney, I'm sure he doesn't make a decision like that lightly. But it was either that or potentially gambling and losing the whole farm, which he's definitely not going to do.
Well, and keep in mind, there are some projects that are going to make them some good money here. Cyberpunk, their new expansion, is an Unreal Engine game. So that's,
Sure.
I'm assuming, going to make some reasonable number of sales. Well, Arc is getting ready to release a new version that they're getting to do. So the percentage of those sales are going to make a difference. The Witcher series, for instance, the thing that they're making all of these open world tools and enhancing those for that particular game. Once that finally releases, that should be a huge spike in money. So it seems like they're kind of aiming for more AAA products right now because they're consistent at a time like this. People will go and buy. We've talked about, I don't know how many times we've talked about this, but when times are tough, there are times when people will invest on cheaper games. But right now, I think that people are using their money on the titles that they know are going to be good. And, a new Witcher game is something that they'll throw money into. The Cyberpunk that's done right, if it's done really well and people hear that it's really good, people will pitch out some money to play that, especially if it's enhanced quite a bit versus the one that was on that old in-house engine. So a little bit different of a mindset, I think, but I think that they're going to be continuing to push to get some of these AAA studios to start moving from these in-house engines and going to Unreal Engine so that they get those big spikes of revenue when those big titles release.
Yeah.
It's a smart thing to do. It's guaranteed income.
Oh, absolutely.
So here, the video game industry, not sounding like a good state currently, but there was another announcement that came out in the past week that this SAG and AFTRA, which I assume that's something with video games,
Screen
members
Actors
authorized.
Guild.
So, well, SAG is the Actors Guild, but then there's this other one that I don't know AFTRA is, but they are authorizing a video game strike. So 98% of the members approved strike for actors and performers in the game industry. This industry, this is not the time. I understand that they feel like, they want to make a little extra money off the video game industry, but this is just something that I find kind of crazy at the moment, especially when AI. I mean, if you want to see an industry push and run towards AI when it comes to voice acting, when it comes to animation, now's the perfect time to be doing all those things. And these guys are going to try to shut down the industry.
Oh, well,
you've got an industry that right now, sure, they take advantage of actors, coming in and doing certain roles, but they don't need these professional actors a lot of times anymore because of the new AI technology.
Especially after everything that we have seen with the writer's strike, which was 140 some odd days.
Yep.
That's over, but the actors strike is still on. That might get resolved here shortly. The whole thing is very confusing. Nevertheless, Brian, I think you hit the nail right on the head. There's a time and place that makes sense.
Time for they're not booming to come in and grab more funds. I mean, they're laying off their staff, and you're going to try to shut it down more. It's bad timing.
It's undoubtedly.
I want to give you a quote they said. It's time for video game companies to stop playing games and get serious about reaching an agreement on this contract. That was the Fran Drescher. You remember Fran Drescher?
Oh, Fran Drescher. Yeah, great.
Go back to do a pretty good impression of her.
Go back to Nick at Night reruns in the early 2000s, Fran. I mean, let's just why don't we pull out Jane Fonda? We start talking about the Vietnam War. I mean, that would be great. She's been leading this whole thing. So, man, I struggle with this. I don't think I'm inherently anti-union, but what I am is anti-bully. And what we are seeing with these unions like SAG, what we're seeing with the auto workers union, who by the way are asking for a 42% pay increase and working 1 day less a week. So a 42% salary increase and working just 32 hours a week instead of 40. It is, again, time and place. And there is a period where you might be able to get away with some of that stuff. there's a period where you might be able to flex your muscles, throw around your weight a little bit, and make something happen, especially in the video game industry, Brian. Right now just isn't the time. It's just not the time.
No. Yeah, and this is the thing. So here's some more quotes from them. After 5 rounds of bargaining, it has become abundantly clear that the video game companies aren't willing to meaningful engage on the critical issues: compensation undercut by inflation, unregulated use of AI, and safety. What that means, I have no idea. How does unregulated use of AI and safety? What does that mean? What's the safety part of
it? Thanks, Donnie, for hitting
is safety a separate piece, but they bundled it together.
Yeah, but see, they're like for them, safety is their safety, right? Because the AI industry is a threat to their safety.
But or are they talking about like when you get on one of those suits that track your motion and you're having to run around and jump off of things? Are they claiming that we're not safe enough in the video game industry for those type of things? I figured maybe it's just because at the end of a sentence not having a comma. But okay, compensation undercut by inflation. Whose fault's that? That there's lots of people you can point the finger at for inflation. Why don't you go and strike and try to get your employees to get mad about what's causing the inflation, not get mad that companies can't afford to pay a huge amount of rates because inflation's killing their income?
Sure.
I mean, that's really what's happening.
Oh, no question about it. I'm curious what the end game is here, right? Because I don't know what it is for them.
Well, I think this is just going to push industries to get away from having as much voice acting, having professional voice people being in, because you don't need an actor, someone who's really well known to come in and do these video games if it's a really good video game. Now, if you've got Red Dead Redemption 2, who has a lot of voice acting, you know what? They can get their voice actors from other places. I don't know if there's a requirement to be in these groups in all places, or can they get people that maybe aren't part of this Actors Guild to come and do voice acting for them?
No,
is there some limitation?
There is, and that's what you saw with the television shows that have been. I know, Brian, your life was significantly upended when Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon weren't on for the last 150 days. I mean, I know you were getting really depressed and sad about it, as I was, and the rest of it.
But isn't that California enforcing that? That's what I'm saying. Can they go to somewhere like Idaho, hire people for voice acting, and not be forced to follow those regulations?
So that's where things get a little tricky. Is depending on the union, depending on the state, depending on the union contract, they may or may not. For example, you go to a convention center, which we have been at it for these gaming conventions at the past. You cannot plug in your own power cord. You have to have a union member, electrician or somebody do that. That's why convention centers are so freaking expensive to go and host events at. You can't have anybody else do it. Part of the contract with the union is this is what you do, and this is we do not do this, you do that. And it depends on the company. So when you're looking at who exactly is involved here, Activision, which I can't wait to see how Microsoft handles that, EA, Epic, and some others, I don't know what their contracts look like. They might be able to use external voice actors. If that's the case, great. Some of them probably are locked in, and this is the deal. This is the deal that we have with the union. So that's the way that we go about it. This is you mentioned the unregulated use of AI. Sure, that's a real concern. And then of course and safety, which there's just to me, you completely water down your argument when you make that the case. I just don't know how much sympathy there's going to be for the video game union members like this, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I don't know. We'll see. I wanted to go over some of the companies that currently are laying people off. I mean,
sure.
These are the companies that are going to be affected by this sort of thing. Embracer Studio has let go Crystal Dynamics. So that's one of their studios that's under that group. I think they're the ones who did some of the Tomb Raider series, if I remember correctly. So the people that make Tomb Raider have laid off a number of their staff. Venture Beat. Now, this is not directly a game studio, but this is some of the writers. Aren't they more of a news organization?
Venture Beat's a news organization. Yes.
Yeah, they're having to lay people off. They're being hit by this. Gearbox reportedly is up for sale. You would think, usually they seem to be doing pretty good, but they haven't put out any major games in a while. They put out some mini games, it seems like, but they're also, I think, under Embracer. So Embracer must be having some big issues. They're letting go some pretty big studios, or offering them up for sale when they would have previously. And then another one is Carlyle Group, or they're looking at selling Jagex, which I'm trying to see which one that is. They, I think they're RuneScape. They make RuneScape.
Oh yeah, mm-hmm. Yep,
which
that's them.
Which is a company that seemed to be doing pretty well. A lot of people were playing the RuneScape remake or whatever it was.
RuneScape Classic.
It's been valued about $1 billion. So they're looking to sell that as well. Ascendant Studios, they're laying off 45% of their workforce.
45%.
45%.
Good God.
And so, and it's because their video game isn't selling as expected. Immortals of Avium, which was a game that they made, they were expecting it to sell better, and every place doesn't seem to be selling well, and so they're having to let people off because they can't afford. And they, this is like a AAA level studio.
This is a small studio. You're talking about a studio with 100 people, around a little over 100 people, laying off 45% of their workforce. I mean, that is, Brian, that's everybody from every department. I mean, nobody is scathing that without some serious nicks and scratches and bites on them. I mean, that's brutal. But as you know, during an era of this is directly from, this is from, I don't know who this is from. This is from the CEO, Brett Robbins. She says, during an era of our industry when this is exceedingly rare, we created a new AAA studio and a new IP on our technology. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your invaluable contributions and the tremendous support. Talking about this is it's exceedingly rare. This is a really tough industry, and maybe we should kind of step back from all of this for just a couple of minutes and talk a little bit about that, because I guess there's this concept or this idea that that's an easy industry, Brian. Anybody can make an indie game. Look at Minecraft, look at Ark, look at Conan Exiles, look at Subnautica and Terraria and all these other games, Brian. Indie, man. And for every single one of those, there are hundreds of thousands. For every one of those games that I just listed, there are hundreds of thousands of games similar. Not, of course, the exact.
Did not make it. Yeah.
Didn't even make it. Didn't come close. Where people poured in blood, sweat, and tears, and it just wasn't possible. Donnie is messaging in on, I feel like I'm doing the radio show. Donnie's texting in this morning. He says it's a tough industry and it's getting more complicated every day. Yeah, amen to that, Donnie. It is very complicated. It's a really rough and tough industry. You can make the best product in the world. You can have the superior features, and you might still fall flat on your face. I mean, that's the case with anything. But it seemingly is more prominent in the video game industry than anything else. So that's
where
there's
ebbs and flows.
Sure.
I mean, if you look at the ebbs and flows of this, is something we've been doing this podcast long enough now to see the cycles that exist in this industry. This is something that we've seen where there's UGX. Thank you very much for how many months? 68 months in a row. Ridiculous.
Damn. We're a true fan. Yeah. He's bigger. He's more fan than I am.
I know he subscribed more than you, more and me.
Yeah, that's fine.
And this is something where we've seen this cycle of games selling really well. The indie studios even, having good sales and a lot of people being interested in that, to where the economy just tanks. Everybody cuts back. Certain studios, one-off titles, some of those will make it, but majority of them kind of disappear. There's a lot that we've covered at conventions. But just think of all the different places that the companies that we spoke to about whatever game that they had that's not even talked about anymore.
Chronicles of
And
Valyria.
that's just Chronicles of Valyria. What's that one with the chicken?
Realm Royale.
Realm Royale. I mean, how much do you hear about that? That wasn't a bad game.
That's still a pretty popular game. Last time I
mean,
checked.
it's still out there.
Let me see if anybody's.
I don't think they're having crazy sales. I don't think it's making big growth at the moment as far as keeping their company growing. It's probably holding them on.
Yeah. Ew.
How's it doing?
Not as good as I would have thought.
Yeah.
Realm Royale. I mean, that's pretty brutal. Now, I will say
it's not a horrible game.
Well, no, actually, it was a lot of fun. Now, I will say this. Mm-hmm. These games started on PC. They've gone over to console, where a game like this is probably more well-suited for console. For example, Apex, I think, is a game now that has significantly more console players than it does PC players at this time. Again, because there's just so much more variety on the PC side. Yep. But I follow High Res Studios on Twitter, on my personal Twitter account. And they still are. I see probably a post or two a week of scheduled maintenance for this, downtime for this, various changes. So they're still working on it. But you're talking about a game that's been out 5 years, and as Donnie noted, trends change so fast. It takes years to make a quality game. Realm Royale came out in 2018. That's when that is
part of the VR craze.
That's in the middle of the Fortnite phrase as well. Craze. Everybody and their brother was making a battle royale. I would say they're a game that stood the test of time. Now, 200 players, some would argue that's not, but they didn't fall flat on their face. They were a very successful and very popular game, and I still believe are when you look at some of their, if we saw some of their other stats. But they'll be in that same ballpark sooner rather than later, unfortunately, because this is a game, Brian, again, another free-to-play that deals exclusively with, not exclusively, but it's a vast majority of its income is coming from microtransactions and individual purchases. And who has the extra money to do that right now? Not everybody, and not a lot of people. I mean, gas is $3.30 something at the tank here, at the gas station here. That is significant. That's a lot of money when you're filling up your tank and driving all over the place. So, it's unfortunate, but again, you're talking about a really, really tough industry.
Yeah, and so we'll see. I mean, of course we'll continue to cover this. This has been an ongoing, just the whole state of the industry, where everything's going. One more from Donnie. This time next year, everything's going to be hitting the fan, which is probably pretty accurate. I mean, if you just look, everything is going everything's going that direction. It's election year, so we're going to have mass chaos about this time next year. You love it. You're looking forward to it.
I'm already
4-year cycle.
I'm already exhausted and stressed out now. Like, I'm at my boiling point now, and it's not even that bad yet. Brian, I guess what I'm learning from our conversation tonight is I better start stockpiling my cash so I can buy my video games and enjoy my life. It's a really tough. Always, the video game industry is really tough. I hate to keep belaboring this point, but I think it's really important. It is a really tough industry, even in good economic times. And you take an industry that is really hard to break through and add all of these other external factors into it, and it makes an almost 0% chance thing an effectively a 0% chance thing. And that sucks, not just for the game developers, Brian, but for the end user. I mean, we're not likely going to see games like The Forest, games like Firewatch, some of these other things that really did for a period of time, take it's micro. A lot this stuff happens at a super macro level. Takes a chunk of this industry by storm. Hundreds of thousands of copies being sold in a couple of weeks. It's crazy. We're likely not going to see that for the next couple of years. So it's unfortunate.
I wanted to, for a moment here, talk about Ark, which is kind of having some things happen.
Yeah, what's going on at the old Ark? That's a great
moment.
example of an indie game that not an indie game, but a game that just kind of popped out of nowhere with a relatively small development studio originally at Studio Wildcard.
And grew pretty big. And they're getting ready to do their new, Ark 2 and doing some changes
whatever
to
it's called. Yeah.
A remastered version of Ark. So they're going to be shutting down their official servers, which I'm assuming we've had a pretty constant stream of people on our Ark servers. I'm assuming this is going to make that grow a little bit. But September 30th, they shut down all of their official servers, and they did a snapshot of those servers because people are going to be able to go download those snapshots and run them locally, or host them and have those available. But yeah, they're not. One interesting thing about this new Ark is it's not going to be cross-play on Steam until I think December, which is kind of weird. So this sequel, they're calling it Ascended, as I assume I think that's what I'm understanding. They're promising an end of October launch, so we're still almost a month out. And then they have a rough timeline here of launch features. So the game will go live this month with crossplay for Windows PC, PS5, and Xbox, but not for Steam. December is when cross-platform play will become available for Steam players, though the post calls this a wild card ETA, which we have experience with.
Not going to happen.
That means that a month or two later,
month or two.
Maybe. If hey, I'm hopeful. Maybe they've learned from their past mistakes.
Shame on you then, Brian. You've been fooled many a times. Shame on you if you believe it's going to be in a month or two. Not a chance in hell.
And this is something that they're having this new. So Ark Survival Evolved is being shuttered, and then it'll be Ark Survival Ascended, which is on this new. You can't host it through any other company than Natrado. We talked about that, but we'll see. I don't think our servers would run. We'd have to figure out some other way, I think, to run this locally and see what the performance is, because this is supposed to be pretty well enhanced, have a lot of new features. Now, what that means for as far as the server running it, that you would think that doesn't mean a bunch of changes for the server. Maybe, we can run it on similar hardware, but they're doing that now. So we'll see if there's an influx of people coming over. But this is kind of crazy. They're going to have cross-platform, but Steam is out of the picture at the moment, and I'm not sure why. What they're using to do this cross, is it something they built in house? Are they using Epic's cross-platform? And maybe that doesn't have Steam integration. I haven't seen officially, but I'm wondering if that's when they'll maybe have a guarantee from Epic that the Steam cross-platform is going to be available. I don't know. Kind of odd that they didn't put Steam in now.
Yeah, that is odd. I'm trying to.
They have this video that they put in here, but it seems like it's just music and a screenshot. I didn't see anything. I was thinking it was maybe a video. It's called Ark We Aren't Meant to Live Forever. But it's just like a song that maybe they added for the final version or something. I don't know.
Well, I'll even say we were talking about this in the pre-show. What game did you mention in the pre-show?
Wow, I don't remember which one were we talking about.
You said some survival game that's finally coming out.
Oh, Dead Matter.
Dead Matter. Not to talk about Dead Matter, but to just talk about, is there Ark's got a big fan base. Right, no argument there. It's an active game. A lot of people play it. They continue to play it. It's still one of the top games on Steam. It continues to be so. I mean, here's their current play. Got about 30,000 people. Their all-time peak was only 16 months ago. So you're talking about less than a year and a half ago on a game that's been out since.
And these are now no longer people playing on the official servers.
Correct.
Because they shut those down a couple days ago.
Yeah, which probably there's probably no reason to even have those official servers up. The player counts on those are probably incredibly small. Just cut that loss and cut that expense out. So there will be a group of people that I'm sure go over to buy the new version of Ark. But similar to what we were talking about with Dead Matter in the pre-show, Brian, this is a style of game that obviously they've got a lot of goodwill with their fan base and their audience. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I'm going to jump and buy this day one. I mean, I was a pretty active Ark player. We all were for a period of time. We played this game religiously for months. Years ago, I will admit. I mean, at this point, it's probably 5 years ago that we were doing that. Probably 2018, 2019. No, definitely 2018. So, when this was happening and going on, you're talking about a long time ago when this game was was super, super hot. Now I look at its all-time peak a year and a half, 16 months ago. All right, I get that. But I just wonder, this far removed from the first one, what that adoption rate looks like and how many people. The industry has changed so much since we played the first versions of Ark, which would have been around 2015. I just wonder if it's going to sell incredibly well. Will it sell? Yes. Will they make a lot of money on it? Sure. Will they make what they're hoping for? My gut reaction is probably not, because this is a
maybe Ark 2 will be their
title.
new way forward. Because I mean, this isn't Ark 2. Ark 2 is the one that's Vin Diesel's being the creative director or whatever for. That one may be more of a story based, because that's something they have not done well.
But how much further down the road is that? That's at least another year.
Assuming it's a year or two. Yeah.
So now you're talking even further removed.
But that may be the way that they're wanting to go, because it's less of this continual ongoing expense. If you get something that's more of a one-off story that you can go through and then the game is done, they don't have to maintain these servers for 10 years. I mean, that's what I think they're looking at is, look at all this cost for the one-time sale that we did, and then they're constantly putting out DLCs to try to figure out ways to continue to make money off of people that sit and play their game every day and use their official servers. Well, maybe the answer is quit doing official servers.
Let me throw this.
Let people host their own servers.
There's something about consistency. And you see a game like Call of Duty, new version every year. FIFA, NBA, 2K, well, it's not called FIFA anymore, it's called Football Club FC. MLB, Madden. These are games that come out on a revolving, frequent cycle. There's always something new. Now, yes, are those games essentially just roster updates and changes to Ultimate Team? Yes. Guess what? They still sell millions and move millions of copies every single year. There is something about that consistency. It's not something. It's the consistency constantly on people's minds, constantly just 12 to 16 months away from a new copy that continues to keep that fan base electric and alive. And when so let's say Ark 2 is 2 years away. You're talking about a decade, Brian. 10 years from the first Ark Survival Evolved to Ark 2. And I just don't know I'm not there. Yeah. Will I eventually buy it? Probably. But I'm not there. If you sold me this game in 2017, of course. 2018, probably. But as those years go on, you become further removed from your last experience with this game. Are you really chomping at the bit to play it? Now, again, the 20 to 60,000 people that are playing every day, sure, they're going to buy it, no questions asked. But what about everybody else? What about the millions of other people that owned Ark, haven't played it in 5+ years? Are they really going to open up their wallet and shell out $70 for a game that they played 5 or 6 years ago?
Yeah.
No.
And I think that's where they're going to need to transition to something different. Get away from, because this current one isn't going to work for them maintaining that studio. And I think they're going to have to go to more of what these other game studios do, is have something that has a good story, that you're building some ongoing, storyline through the whole thing, and continue releasing versions of it, right? This is Ark, whatever, and it goes through this whole series of a time frame in Ark. You have characters that you meet, things that happens, people get sad, people get hurt, and then you release something a couple years later that's a continuation of that story, maybe with some extra features. That's how you make money in this. They figured out that the way they're doing it costs a lot of money. and you constantly are having to keep things backwards compatible. You're relying on people buying DLCs, and then they complain about it. Coming with all these gimmicks. It's just, I think the game has the ability to have a good story, and that's something they haven't really done yet. And I'm hoping Vin Diesel maybe can make it to where, let's hear about the lore of Ark. Let's hear how it started, because they have not told that story in the gameplay. No matter how much they say they have not. I have no idea really how any of it came to be, and I just don't have the energy to play through all the crazy ascendants and getting all those things to be able to figure out that story. That's for the very 1% of the people that play Ark. And why you're only telling the story to 1% of the players, which is crazy.
Let me pose this to you, and then we'll get out of here. How many people that played Ark 2015, 16, 17, and 18, how many of them care about the Ark story right now? Or what are they? Because
not anymore.
They're playing Starfield. They're going to be the new GTA will be out presumably within the next 24 months. Do they care about the Ark story?
Get your game in that cycle so that it becomes something they care about. Just like with Starfield, if they continue putting out things in that genre, they'll care about it.
Sure.
With GTA, they care about that. They don't care about this. The story changes. There's new things, but it's something they look forward to. And with Skyrim, Fallout, all these games, it may not be the same story, but it comes from a studio that they know has a certain consistency, as you said. And when their next game comes out, you generally know what to expect. What do you expect with Ark? Some of their DLCs are so different than anything else. Some of them were flops. Some of them were pretty decent, but they're really all just a bunch of maps when it comes down to it.
Oh.
They're not really getting a new game. And that's what I think they need to get away from.
Yeah. All right. Well, good conversation as always, Brian. Where can folks find you online?
All right. You can find me at Boise Computer on X, or at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Getter, Truth Social. If you want to check out my blog, biteoftech.com, or if you go to our website, infectionpodcast.com, you go to the upper right-hand side, and you can join our server on Discord. That's the perfect place if you want to get a hold of Nick or I. Maybe you want to go talk some politics, or maybe you want to play some Ark. Got kicked off your official server, looking for a home to stay. Jump on there. If you want to give some input into the show, go ahead and drop a link into the show news channel, and we review those before the live show. If there's an interesting article or a topic that you think we should be discussing. If you want to watch the live show, you can do that through Twitch or YouTube, or watch it after the fact on Rumble, or you can listen to it after the fact on all the different platforms, devices, and ways that we have to listen on the lower right-hand side. A lot of different locations for that. If you are listening or watching on Rumble, that means we've already got the show notes up there. So go ahead and click on that. There's a video and audio player built into that page. Or, if you're listening it on your app, you can also click on some of these and check it out. We've got links for, maybe there's a video that we showed that you only were able to hear, or reference material, all the things that we look at and are watching during the show, you have access to, and they're right there in a nice, easy format. If you want to support us, you can do that through the menu option up top, or infectionpodcast.com/support.
Yes, I want to thank our friend Donnie PC Games and UGX Vibe for their resubscriptions here during the show. Gentlemen, greatly appreciated. Programming note, we'll be back next Wednesday. That is the 11th of October. So if you're freaking out that it's not in your podcast app on Monday or Tuesday, we'll be back next Wednesday as we work through some different scheduling things. So looking forward to chatting with everybody then. Brian, as always, greatly appreciated. We'll see you next week. Alrighty, folks, that's going to do it. You can check me out on X at Nicholas M. Craig. My day job is the Wilmington's Morning News. It starts way too early in the morning, so check out the podcast. You can do that by visiting your favorite podcast app and searching Wilmington's Morning News. As Brian noted, you missed any portion of the show, or maybe want to check out our Ark service, you can find all the details on that on our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.